So with this week's episode of the series, we get a very interestingly structured episode. It's very much a different flow and a different pace than I would say the past 7 weeks here, because primarily we're focusing on our main characters here. The Escape King is generally a side supporting character. Sure, we get his perspective from time to time, but it's very rare that a good chunk of the episode is just on his perspective. And we get a very unique episode because of that. This was my favorite episode, but it was definitely a unique episode that sets the narrative and the story in an interesting direction. I mean, the first 6 minutes or so of this episode, we get focusing on two of the sides here. We got the old samurai guy who's breaking into a bank, stealing a katana, and probably some money as well. And then we also have the other side kind of like trying to determine why he was going after it. And I assume he knows why the katana was so important. For us, we just know it's an ancient sword. Hopefully it doesn't have some demonic powers or things like that. But it was kind of interesting how they started this episode, because I was assuming we would focus primarily on Sugimoto, things like that. But they actually focus back on the antagonist here, two of the sides of the antagonist, and interesting how both of them have their own ideas on what to do with the treasure. We know what the soldiers want to do. They were kind of screwed out after the war. But in terms of this old samurai man, it seems like he wants to essentially like buy his own country or get that gold out of Japan. He's basically going to be set for life. So we at least know his idea and what he's building up to. But the comedy in this episode is actually pretty good. I mean, we see literally the Escape King get like gnawed on by an animal. He's using the dead guy's dog to track and find out where the samurai guy is and things like that. Like, seriously, this episode had a lot of solid moments. The facial reactions have always been a strong point for this series, but they were really well done with this week's episode here. The Escape King has always had really good facial reactions. He's always just cracking up, at least myself here. I'm going to assume many of the viewers, just with his absurd facial reactions. But one of the weirdest and probably one of the more funny moments of this episode is one of the inmates that we get introduced to, the guy who almost drowns, and very much seems like he has a lot of sexual arousal when it comes to violence and killing. I mean, they literally animate him as having a glowing penis. Like, seriously, the guy is just getting so wound up on Sugimoto because he keeps talking to him about, like, his past. Like, how many people did you kill? Do you remember their faces? And he's like, oh, I want this guy to kill me. Like, the guy is definitely messed up. Sometimes you'll just get introduced to a character in this series, like when we were back at the camp there, and we're learning about what some of the kids are named, and they just have the most absurd names, and then you get introduced to an inmate who very much gets off on killing and things like that. The series is definitely weird. It has its serious plot for the most part, but holy hell, they introduce some characters who are just batshit insane, and they're just very much interesting to watch. Like, I don't even know how next week is going to go down. The series can just pull the most absurd punches, and I'd say 9 out of 10 times they land here, because the series from the get-go has always had a very unique atmosphere to it. So even when it does do some of the weirdest and wackiest things you can imagine, somehow it just flows for the narrative that it's telling here, and it's pretty good because of that. Like, I mean, I'm digging the overall antagonist sides here. They're at least giving you reasons, and you understand like what their objective is, so when we do focus on them, you're interested in seeing where they're going to go. I mean, it also helps that their character designs are pretty solid as well. But just overall, like, you're excited to see whoever is on screen here. It doesn't have to just be Sugimoto. Everyone on this cast here is more or less pretty damn entertaining to watch. And then when we get introduced to new side characters, they usually have a very unique and distinct personality. We had the hunter, and now we got the guy who gets off on violence here. I mean, the cast is always pretty damn entertaining and unique, and that really does help set this series apart from other anime within this season. This was definitely a very much primarily plot-focused episode here, focusing on all the sides we typically don't focus on, or at least don't shine too much of a light on, so it's nice to see a bit more of their sides and their perspectives. Also see a bit more of the Escape King, because you can never get too much of him. He's definitely my favorite character in this show. He's just so entertaining to watch. No matter what he's doing on screen, he's either going to crack me up or he's just going to entertain me at the very least. And all the Sugimoto stuff as well was just fun as well here. It definitely didn't have as much cooking and things like that as we're used to with this series, so it wasn't as much of a cooking episode. But still, like, I did like a little bit of the hunting we got to see, and then also them just kind of fishing and cooking up a little dish there that everyone was kind of having fun with. I just like that kind of like cultural side, or just when they're cooking or hunting. It's just, for whatever reason, it's naturally fun to watch. And I think it just helps because you have characters just embrace the food so much. You just kind of feel happy that they're feeling happy eating all these dishes. It's just always fun here, but I really don't have too much more to say past this. This was a fun episode. Wasn't my favorite of the series, but I do like how we were focusing on characters we don't focus that much on. Like, the Escape King's been in a lot of episodes, but it's nice to have a lot of the episode's content directed towards him, but then also the antagonists, see what they're up to, what their plans are, and also set up the remaining episodes for this season here. It was a good episode, but let me know what you're feeling. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Your favorite moment? What do you think of the new convict who has a very strange obsession for murder and things like that? Let me know what you're feeling down in that comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, and if you're new, also be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.